A powerful CEO stood in front of her employees, laughing at the janitor she had mocked for years. "If you can fix this engine, I'll marry you," she joked. Sure, he'd fail. But what no one in that office knew was that the man she ridiculed wasn't just a janitor, and when he laid his hands on that engine, her entire world turned upside down. Evelyn Marshall was the type of CEO everyone feared. Dressed in power suits, heels that clicked like a metronome of authority, and a voice sharper than glass, her word was law inside the towering headquarters of Marshall Tech. She had built her empire from the ground up, or so she claimed. To her, status meant everything, and anyone below her, well, they weren't even worth a second glance, which is why she never missed an opportunity to humiliate James Carter, the quiet black janitor who worked late nights cleaning her office floors. James was polite, soft-spoken, and hard-working. He greeted everyone with a nod, never complained, and kept to himself. But to Evelyn he was invisible, until she decided to use him as a punchline. It started small. Sarcastic comment here, a cutting remark there. "Careful with that mop. James, don't want you to get water on my Italian leather shoes." Or, "Maybe if you studied harder, you could be more than a janitor." But one night, when Evelyn invited her executives to show off a new prototype engine her company was developing, she decided to take things further. The engine, a sleek, complex machine meant to revolutionize energy systems, sat in the middle of the room. But there was a problem. It wouldn't start. Engineers had spent weeks trying to diagnose the issue, but nothing worked. Evelyn, frustrated and embarrassed in front of her board, spotted James quietly mopping in the corner. And that's when she said it. "Well, since my genius engineers can't figure it out, maybe our janitor can. Tell you what, James, if you can fix this engine, I'll marry you." The room erupted in laughter. Evelyn smirked, sipping her wine, certain her words would disappear into thin air. But James didn't laugh. He simply looked at her, calm and steady, and replied, "Deal." The room fell silent. What Evelyn didn't know was that James wasn't just a janitor. Years ago, before life had beaten him down, James had been an engineer prodigy. He studied mechanical engineering at MIT, worked for top firms, and even held patents under his name. But tragedy struck. His wife passed away suddenly, leaving him with crushing medical bills. He lost everything. His career, his home, and eventually his hope. With nowhere else to turn, he took whatever job he could find to survive. That job happened to be janitorial work at Marshall Tech, but just because he carried a mop didn't mean his brilliance had vanished. The next evening, James walked into the lab after hours. No audience, no laughter, just him and the engine. He studied it carefully, tracing the lines of wiring, listening to the hum of dormant power. He could see instantly where the engineers had gone wrong. A misalignment in the fuel intake, a calibration error in the ignition sequence, and a software loop causing the system to freeze. For hours, he worked silently, hands steady, mind sharp. It was as if he'd been reborn in that moment, not as a janitor, but as the engineer he once was. When he pressed the ignition switch, the engine roared to life. The sound echoed through the building like thunder, and James just smiled. The next morning, Evelyn arrived with her executives ready for another day of pretense. But what she walked into left her speechless. The engine, her company's biggest project, was alive, running smoothly, more powerful than anyone had ever seen it. "Who did this?" she demanded. The lead engineer hesitated. "It was James, the janitor." Gasps filled the room. Evelyn's face turned pale. She remembered her words, her cruel bet. James stood in the corner, mop in hand, as calm as ever. "You fix this?" she stammered. He nodded. "You said if I fixed it, you'd marry me. Remember?" The room exploded in whispers. Evelyn laughed nervously, trying to brush it off. "I was joking." No one took that seriously, but the board did. Investors did. The story spread through the company like wildfire. The janitor outsmarted the CEO's engineers. Within weeks, Marshall Tech's reputation shifted. James became the quiet hero. Reporters swarmed, wanting to interview the mysterious janitor, who had solved what top-paid engineers couldn't. And Evelyn. She could feel her grip on power slipping. Behind the scenes, James's identity came to light. Former colleagues confirmed his brilliance. His patents resurfaced. Investors realized the man Evelyn mocked could actually lead innovation far better than she ever had. Soon, whispers began in the boardroom. If Evelyn could mock talent like James, was she really fit to lead? Her empire was cracking. The board called an emergency meeting. Evelyn tried to defend herself, blaming her engineers, spinning lies, but it was too late. James was offered a position, not as a janitor, but as chief engineer. And Evelyn? She was forced out, removed from the very company she built, brought down by her arrogance and cruelty. James didn't take her mockery as a wound. It became his redemption. With his new role, he rebuilt his life, honoring his late wife's memory, and proving that dignity and skill can't be erased by circumstance. As for Evelyn, her empire became a cautionary tale, a reminder that belittling others often plants the seeds of your own downfall. And the words she thought were a joke, "Fix this engine and I'll marry you," became the prophecy of her destruction. Never underestimate someone because of their job, their title, or their struggles. The janitor you mock today may be the genius who saves you tomorrow. And the arrogance you wear like armor? It can shatter in an instant when truth and talent step into the light.